Afternoon, guys. GT the Vibe podcast coming at you another episode. Today, I'm going to talk about kind of the history and religions. Um, as far as you got the major three: Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. So those are the major threes. There's paganism on the other end. So essentially, paganism is basically the belief in multiple gods or deities. Um, Polytheism is a term that's used when you think about paganism. Goddesses and gods, you kind of think about Zeus, you think about Ishtar. Those are some of the that's a goddess and a god that people that are pagan believe in. And so yeah, there's multiple deities when it comes to paganism, and how that differs from Christianity, Islam, and Judaism is that's going to be monotheism. So that's a belief in one God, um, a belief that there's one God and rules everything. So one God that rules over everything. Whereas paganism is a little bit different on the spectrum because um, they believe in multiple gods. So they devise their life and their calendars and the kind of the way they live. I mean, they believe in like the earth stuff. So they kind of get into the realm of, I mean, in a similar to Hinduism are some of the ancient Greek religions that they talk about, and then African tribe religions too. Some of the Africans also believed in multiple deities. So that would be considered pagans. Or biblically, if you're speaking from the Bible standpoint, they call them Gentiles, believers in anything other than Jesus Christ, God, Jesus Christ. And so today, so what we're going to talk about, I'm going to do a couple part series. We're going to take a deep dive into the history of religion, some of the things, some of the bridges between different religions, how they came about. Obviously, Abrahamic is going to be for the main three, and that's where people say most time that they came from. Um, so Christianity, you obviously have Catholicism as well. That's kind of like in its own realm. That's within Christianity. And then you have your Islam, your Muslims, then you have your Jews. So basically, what we're going to talk about today is conversion in the ancient Roman Empire, and so a lot of things that people don't understand about Christianity in and of itself is the fact that Christianity came. Um, the changes in Christianity are because there was a battle in the ancient Roman Empire. And so ancient Rome were pagans. They were mainly paganistic believers. They believed in the sun god. They believed in Venus. They believed in Zeus. Um, so they would put all their marbles into these different gods and goddesses, and every god or goddess had their own meaning or what their own thing was. Just to kind of give you one, I know that most people would know Ishtar is is a goddess, god slash goddess. I've heard kind of different things on Ishtar as far as kind of transgender, a trend because I mean when you think about a deity, you can't really put I mean, you can put a gender on them, but it's kind of hard to put a gender on them because it's a spirit, right? So when you think about these things, you have to understand that. So it's kind of within the eye of the people that believe in those specific deities. And so Ishtar's just one that I feel like people would know. She was a goddess of sex and fertility. And so in war as well, sexuality, fertility, and war. They associate it with love, but that goddess comes from the planet Venus. So that's where Ishtar comes from, the planet Venus. And so that's just kind of to give you an example of the differences. So that's paganism. So then you think about Christianity, God, right? Three in one, God, Jesus, Spirit, Holy Spirit. So they have the mindset when you speak about God, or you're Muslims, or you have your Jewish people that speak about their God, right? It is that one being. So they don't have multiple beings with that have um, different aspects to them. So kind of the way the ancient Greeks did, some of the African tribes did the same thing. Egyptians would be huge in this with a lot of the hieroglyphics. You would have a god or a goddess that meant certain things. Then you would have another god or goddess that meant other certain things. And so you kind of broke it down like that. But what happened in ancient Rome is Christianity started to spread, right? And so in ancient Rome, as Christianity started to spread, you got to understand that within Rome, they had traditions that they were automatically accustomed to, right? So in order for Christianity, for the Christian leadership to be able to hopefully transition or conversion, right? Conversion. Let's look at the definition of conversion if you guys don't have it. That is, um, it's the fact of changing one's religion or beliefs or the action of persuading someone else to change theirs. So basically, when you're trying to convert people from what they traditionally believe in, you're going to probably take on some of what they believe in. You're not going to completely convert them all the way over because people are big on traditions. You have let's kind of think about Hispanics. The quinceanera. So coming of age for females, that is a tradition, right? So basically what it is they would add that in to the religion because they wanted to have, let's say they wanted to have Hispanic people become Christians. So in order for you to have Hispanic people become Christians, you're talking to them about Christianity, you're teaching them about Jesus Christ, which you understand, those rooted traditions, they're probably not going to change, right? And so as you convert them over, they also bring stuff with them too. And so you end up having what is conversion. So it's a 1 + 1 = 2, right? One religion, one group, right? You bring them together, and there's going to be something else that comes along with it. And so you don't just take the Hispanic person or the Hispanic culture and say, we're going to get rid of the quinceanera. We're going to get rid of that. We don't want you guys to celebrate that anymore because it's not in the Bible. So we're going to get rid of that. We want you to do this instead. No, what you do is you teach about Jesus. You say, okay, well, you guys are celebrating what you're celebrating, okay? But let's do it in the name of Jesus, and then we will transition that over too. So that's essentially what happened in the ancient pagan days is they took what was traditional to the Romans at the time, and then they transitioned it to make it a Christian habit or a Christian holiday. And so that's what they did. And that was the one thing that I feel like Jews did not like that. Jews are very traditional. There's certain things that Jewish people do. You will never catch a Jewish person go inside of a Christian church. That will never happen. Um, the Jews did not like that, and neither did the Islamic people either, because those religions are a little bit more, power, right? They're a little bit more sacred. They hold themselves to a sacred standard. So Jewish people hold themselves to a sacred standard. The Islamic people hold themselves to a sacred standard. Christians don't necessarily hold themselves to a sacred standard, right? They're a little bit more conformative to whatever's going on inside society. Whereas your Islamic people, you can't count on them to conform to society, and you cannot count on your Jewish people either. And so what happened is during the conversion, the early ancient Roman Empire, because the Romans were powerful. That's the reason why a lot of things that we have on Earth today, a lot of our systems, a lot of the way things work, is because it's based on paganism because of ancient Rome, how powerful they were. So this tells you that we're now 2024, and we're talking about early days after AD, early days, 100, 200 AD, right? How powerful the Romans were then, and we're talking thousands of years ago, how some of what they did, some of their traditions still hold well and true today. That just shows you the power of the Roman Empire. And so what happened was is the Christians came in and they were like, we want to convert the ancient Roman Empire. We want to change people that are pagans into Christian believers. And so leadership had to get together and say, well, how do we do that? Well, we do that by letting them bring some of what they already do with us. You can't completely take it all away. You put yourself in a position where you're probably going to have some rebellion and they're probably not going to want to transition over. So, in order for them to build a bridge, right, they had to allow these people to bring some of the stuff over to the other side of the bridge. And so that's what happened in ancient Roman Empire. That's the reason why Christianity and paganism have a lot of the same rooted things, right? There's a lot of things that they are rooted in the same. A lot of traditions. There are some beliefs that pagans share that Christians also do. And that's not to knock on Christianity. It's not to knock on paganism. A lot of Christians may think that paganism is Satanism, but it's actually not. They believe in gods and goddesses. They are not satanic people. There's witchcraft involved with some conglomerates of paganism. When you look at neo-paganism, there's witchcraft involved there. So yes, there is some witchcraft involved with paganism, but it's not necessarily that paganism in and of itself is Satanism. Those are two separate things. And so what I'm doing is what I'm trying to break down for you guys is that what happened, what caused Christianity to be so similar to paganism. Now, some people will get biblical on me and they'll say, well, Satan um, believed in Jesus, but he rebelled, he disobeyed, and so he's trying to be like Jesus. So that could be what paganism is. Is it possible that that could be? Yes, it's extremely possible because you got to think about who Satan was, where he was, right? He was in heaven with God. And so before he came down here, he already kind of knew some things that he probably knows more about God than we do, right? We're still learning, but he probably knows more. And we got to understand that. And so what I'm trying to get you guys to understand is that as religion has evolved over the years, things have changed. We can't just think that it's going to be the exact same as it was on day one. Even from the Islamic and the Jewish people, I mean, I would say probably they changed a lot less than Christianity. When I think of Christianity, I think of more of a conformative religion. It's a religion that will conform more than the others, right? Because you've got your big three, you know what they are. Christianity is probably the most conformative one, more likely to conform to society and the current culture. Islamic is not, they're not going to conform. Like when you think about what's going on in the Middle East, women still cover, they're fully covered, right? Christians, Christian women used to be covered too. They used to be big on head covering, right? Because you covered your head because Christ is the head. Or when you're a wife, you cover, or when you're a wife to a husband, you cover your head because your husband's the head. Like there was a whole bunch of traditional stuff that so Christians used to be similar to Islamic in the form of like covering yourself, right? But they have transitioned over the years, whereas Islam has not. The Jews also have not. You're less likely to get Judaism to change than anything else. So, what I'm trying to get you guys to understand again is that Christianity is the more conformative religion. Traditions. So, let's talk about traditions for a little bit. We won't go deep dive into it. But I mean, you can look at the calendar, Sunday, Monday, all those things based on pagan um, traditions from ancient Rome. And so even our holidays, birthdays, Christmas, Easter, things like that, they are based on paganism. And so what happened is we have a tradition of culture that has survived over the years, and it's a strong one. It's not to knock on. I'm not even knocking on paganism. Paganism is a strong traditional belief, religion, belief, whatever you want to call it. Pagans are actually less likely to change, a lot less likely to change than Christians are. Because what you got to understand is that when they converged back in the day, Christians had their own holidays, they had their own celebrations, but when they converged, who actually won that battle? Pagans did. Paganism won that battle because their traditions trumped the traditions of Christianity. Because there was a time when Christian traditions mirrored more Judaism, right? There was a time when they did, but at that point in time, as Christians started to converge, conversion started with the Roman Empire and paganism, Jews separated themselves from Christians, right? Or you could say Christians separated themselves from Jews. Whatever you want to say, however you want to spin it, you spin it that way. They separated themselves because Jews did not want to do what pagans were doing. Islamic people do not want to do what pagans are doing. So Christians saw an opportunity for growth and said, okay, if we do a little bit of what they do, we don't do it all, we don't believe exactly the way they do it, then maybe we can get them to convert to Christianity. And so it was basically a power play. Essentially, when you look at it as a power play. And they call that syncretism. I had it pulled up here. Let me get back to my notes. What syncretism is. It's a union or attempted fusion of different religions. So syncretism is what happened between Christianity and paganism. So now that we've kind of seen the differences, now we're going to not delete, but we're going to erase Judaism and Islam. Because now we're going to look at Christianity and paganism, how they are alike. Sorry, guys, my eraser skills aren't to classroom teacher status yet. Working on it. So, traditionally, these two are very similar, actually, when you look at it. On part two, three, and four of the series, I'm going to go over in depth more, but I'm just going to talk about syncretism for a little bit and some of the similarities between Christianity and paganism. Like we talked about how it happened already, so we know how it happened, right? We know why it happened. Conversion and syncretism is why it happened. The goal was to make Christianity the biggest, right, most robust religion. And that goal that they had actually worked because Christianity is the top religion in the world today, is number one. And it would not have been number one had they not added in some pagan tradition. So I'm not knocking on Christianity. Some of y'all will get mad and, oh, you're saying we're close to paganism. If you're being honest with yourself, that is correct. These two things are more alike than they are separate. Um, I mean, there are some witchcraft differences. There are some multiple deities differences, but some of your traditions, same festivals and paganism. So when you think about, um, let's take Christmas. Sorry, let's take Christmas for instance. Came from it's an ancient it's more of a pagan festival, right? Pagan worship, pagan festival, things that pagans used to do, right? There's joy in what they were doing, and so Christians saw the opportunity to say, hey, we can adopt that, and maybe they'll come celebrate it with us. The Sabbath day, right? Sunday, sun god. So our actual Sabbath day is more so rooted in paganism than it is Christianity. Because if we actually go by Christianity, it's going to be a little bit more close to what the Jews do. Because technically, the Sabbath day is supposed to be the seventh day, which our actual seventh day of the week is actually Saturday. It's not Sunday. Sunday is supposed to be the first day of the week, and that's according to the pagan calendar that we actually use in the world today. But because of the sun and sun worship, Christianity adopted Sunday as the Sabbath day. So Sunday was not supposed to be, but it is now the Sabbath day, and that's a pagan. So that has pagan roots as well as Christian roots too. So yes, the Sabbath day is Christian roots, but the day that it actually is on has pagan roots. Same thing goes with Christianity. I mean, with Christmas, it has roots of Christianity because we're celebrating Jesus' birthday, but when we celebrate it, it's based on some pagan rituals. Easter, same thing. Jesus died and rose again, so we celebrate that, right? But when we celebrate it, how we celebrate it, based on pagan tradition, right? And so what you're starting to see is what conversion and syncretism actually look like when you dabble in, you kind of you pick out pieces. It's kind of like build a bear warehouse, right? You're building a bear the way you want it to be. And so we understand as human beings that we are locked in tradition. God said that in the Bible. He said that for a reason. And so Christians understood, okay, people are locked in tradition. We can't overcome some of these obstacles unless we adopt some new traditions. And so Christians did that. Am I knocking on Christians for doing that? Absolutely not. I'm saying, but I'm telling you that's what happened. Christians adopted some traditions from pagans in order for them to keep the growth going, right? Which was the goal. That was 100% the goal from day one, was to keep the growth going. And so that's what they did. So remember those things as we talk. So we're going to talk a little bit about, obviously, um, we now know what happened. We know the differences. We know the top three religions. We know how we got here. On my next episode, episode 2, coming out later on this week, we're going to talk about how it has affected the actual Christian church today. Because there are some effects when you convert and you mix a little bit up, and I mean, because if you put two different colors together, you get a new color, right? Same thing goes here. So you can't think that you can put Christianity and paganism into the same melting pot and you're just going to come out with Christianity on top, right? There's going to be some things that you're going to have to overcome when you make a move like that. So that's all for this episode, though, guys. I appreciate you rocking with GT Divide Podcast. Look forward to our next episode. Okay, it will come out soon, and it's going to be kind of going into how the conversion and what the Christians were trying to do back in Roman days has affected us today. We're going to look at it from a Christian biblical view. There's going to be a lot of Bible reading coming up as we kind of filter through this. But my goal is to get you guys to understand the history of Christianity, where it came from, why we're here. Over time, it has changed. The words in the Bible have not changed, but Christianity has changed. So that tells you something. Man, obviously, when you give something to man, they have the ability to change it a little bit. Not saying all change is good or bad change, but there is going to be change. So that's GT Divide Podcast. If you like our stuff, please like, subscribe, share, and I will see you guys on the next one.